Hey everybody, Dan Holstein here, helping your business take flight. And I'm really excited today to be interviewing Jeremy Bridger, who's a certified financial planner and wealth advisor with RBC Dominion Securities. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks, Dan. Good to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So tell us a little bit about your practice and what you do and who you serve.
Sure. RBC Dominion Securities. Been with RBC just over 21 years now, and primarily helping clients meet their goals, wealth planning, understanding their needs, take care of their family, long-term relationships, business owners, medical professionals, some agricultural clients, all within the kind of Hamilton region.
Good stuff. So the golden horseshoe kind of area, and it sounds like you've got to focus on business owners particularly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. So how are, with the COVID situation that we're presently in, how are you guiding your clients through this challenging time?
Yeah, I mean, so much about it is communication. We want to communicate as often as we can. A lot of our clients have been long-term clients, good relationships. Kind of want to know what's happening with them and their families. How does this affect the plans we have in place? How does it affect their business? It's very much about a communication for us. You know the families, the kids. Sometimes the parents. That relationship part has been super important going through a crisis like this. At least for our practice.
Well, I can imagine being 21 years in, you probably have some clients that are multi-generational as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And you've seen the changes in families. You've seen kids grow up. You've seen businesses change hands. It's super important, yes, to make sure you have that relationship so that you're always on the same page together. Makes
a lot of sense. Yeah. Communication is always so critical. And they say, during a crisis, you can't over communicate.
Right.
Yeah. Make sure everyone, even if there's nothing new to share, let them know that there's nothing new to share. Right.
And it's just nice to be in touch. Yeah. And especially the fact it's a health crisis. We all want to make sure everybody's okay.
Yeah.
And then that plays into kind of the wealth advice we give. And that's extremely important.
Makes sense. So what are some of the things that a business owner needs to make sure that they keep in mind when they're doing their own wealth planning? And, the business can often be a very big distraction for a business owner, and maybe they don't make time for wealth planning or not early enough. What are some of the things that they really need to make sure that they're considering?
I mean, let's remember, in many cases, the business is their most valuable asset. It's where they've built their net worth. It's potentially their future retirement. Maybe it's their cash flow. It's a part of who they are. So, what we say to clients is, let's make sure we've got a really nice plan in place. Let's know about the family. Let's know about your wealth. How does your business, which again could be your main asset, how does that fit within your overall wealth plan? And so when I say to business owners, do you have a wealth plan? And what does that mean? Does that mean a 40-page document? Or does that mean that you've just got an idea of where's the business going? How are we growing? Where do we see ourselves in 5 or 10 years? Is there an exit? Is there not an exit? Is there kids coming in? I think all those pieces, just like we have every day, we have those conversations. A crisis just brings those on that much more important.
I guess it really puts the focus on, hey, people get a little bit nervous and they start thinking about the future and what's going to happen. And I guess it puts a finer point of a focus on, hey, I do need to make sure I've got my financial ducks in a row.
Yes. Yeah. And that means, it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. When I look at it, because again, I'm a planner by heart, so I love to see a bit of a roadmap, a report card. Are we on track? What does that mean? And we, in today's world, we're talking lots about investments because we're seeing the stress of markets moving around and volatility and all things that we experience in all the crises we've been here. And I've been through several crises now that we all come out okay out of. But when we start thinking about our wealth, it's bigger than just our day-to-day investments. It gets into a whole bigger conversation. It's about having a financial plan written. It's about having good advisors that you can have communication with. It's talking to your tax advisors, your accountants about the right structures. Is there a chance to take some opportunity in a crisis to make some changes to your structure? It's your estate plan. It's are your documents up to date, your power of attorney and your will and all of those sorts of things. That's the stuff we need to talk about. And I've always said to clients, every 3 to 5 years, you should be thinking about those things. You should pull your will out and what does it say? Does it still represent your wishes and your dreams? Is it still the right executor? All those sorts of things. Sometimes the crisis just helps us put that in perspective and makes it that much more important.
That's a great point because, as a business owner, if they're not looking at their wealth plan every 3 to 5 years and examining that, like some of those questions that you just mentioned, their business and their life may have changed markedly since they made those prior decisions. So again, you're talking about how critical it is to have that level of communication. And who's sort of the team that you mentioned a few different disciplines there. What do you recommend in terms of a team that a business owner is going to want to align themselves with to make sure they're getting all the right advice?
Yeah, I mean, from a business owner, generally it starts with the accountant
Mhm.
having a strong tax advice. Um, in the country we live, we need to understand what our structure is, how we pay tax, how we earn income, how do we keep money in our pocket to reinvest into our businesses. So a lot of that really is a good tax planner, a good accountant.
Mhm.
Um, and then that also leads into a good lawyer. And that could be maybe an estate lawyer to do your estate documents, maybe it's a corporate lawyer, a good legal team that goes hand in hand with the accountant. But then it gets a little bigger than that. I mean, our side is that we're the wealth planning, so we're involved with your day-to-day investment decisions. But that still gets, it's all still part of the same circle. The advisors need to communicate, need to work together on a strategy. And then from that, you pull in a very similar to your role, pull in a coach, bring in some good advice, people you can depend on that can take a look at your business from a different angle than you are from a day-to-day perspective. I think those are all very key pieces to having a true advisor team.
That makes a lot of sense. And you just used the word team, and it really strikes me that everyone's going to have their own specialty and they're going to see things within their own context, but having that collaborative aspect where they could bounce ideas off of each other, like the lawyer and the accountant, the wealth planner and the lawyer, et cetera. That's going to give a little bit of more holistic view to what's going on with the business owner's portfolio, their planning, their business, their timing and everything else as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very easy to get, kind of sucked into our day to day. We all know what we love to do. We all know what we're good at. So we end up putting energy towards things we like or things we're interested in. And we don't necessarily want to put energy towards things that maybe we're not as interested in or don't necessarily have the knowledge and want to talk about it. And, I say as advisors, I see my job is to sometimes ask the hard question. It's my responsibility to sometimes pull you aside and say, you don't want to talk about your estate or you don't want to talk about your risk management plan, but we need to have those conversations. Um, and having the right advisors who will step up and say, not always agree with everything you want to do, but this is my advice. This is what I think you should do. This is why we should review your life insurance. This is why we should take a look at the estate again, or this is why we look at your corporate structure. Um, those are all very important pieces. And without the right advisors around you to do that, then sometimes you just get lost in the day to day. And a crisis like
Yeah.
this just brings that right back to the table. We should be doing it every day anyway, but sometimes we need a caveat to go back and look at what are the things we haven't touched in a while. And this could be that opportunity.
Yeah, a bit of a wake up call for people to actually take that time. And many people have more time on their hands now as well. So we kind of get rid of that "I'm too busy" excuse. But you're right. You said business owners are they're just in it day to day, which is, well, I see that a lot. It's so true. And I think for that reason they may ignore wealth planning or it's sort of in the back of their mind they want to get to it, but they don't. They're not sure who to. They don't know they need a team. They don't know what wealth planner to connect with, and they're just busy, and so things can get delayed. And I guess that's when challenges can happen. So instead of focusing on sort of some mistakes like that the business owners might be making by delaying, what are some of the best practices that business owners want to consider when thinking about wealth planning?
Yeah, I think for me, it starts with a roadmap. Like, let's sit down and draft out what does the next few years look like? What does the business look like? What does the family dynamics look like? Let's understand as a family what do we want to accomplish, and from there, then we can lay out an actual action plan of how we accomplish those. And sometimes, as we talked about, sometimes that's pulling the accountant in for help. Sometimes it's pulling the lawyer in for help. But it's really laying out your plans into the future, not and it doesn't have to be day to day ideas, but from a higher level is where do we want this business to go, and how do we transition it? Someday we're all going to transition our business. It's whether we are prepared and we get the maximum value for our families because we put a lot of work into our businesses. If we put the planning in place, I think that's really where that's where you gain the biggest benefit from even a crisis like today or every day that we deal with clients.
And I guess with having a plan, it's a bit of you can compare it to where you're at. You know the path. You're not just off in the wild. You do have a plan that you can measure against to kind of keep you focused as well. Um, okay, and the other thing that struck me as you're describing that you create a plan, you tell us a little bit about your process. Because obviously, as a planner, you're going to have a specific process that you step people through. And I think that's a missing link for a lot of business owners. They're not sure how it all works, or is it going to be really complicated and difficult? Tell us a little bit about how what your structure of your process is like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I have a fantastic team around me, and typically, we're wealth advisors. So we'll meet a client because they may need some advice on their day-to-day investments. And sometimes that's a conversation about stocks. Sometimes it's bonds. Sometimes it's funds. But typically that's how you meet a client. But to be honest, that's one particular piece of what it is we want to do. And we call it our wheel. But the idea is you meet and you take care of the investments, but then how does that fit into actual building a cash flow plan? So I have some great software that we can lay out. What's retirement going to look like? What's cash flow going to look like? What's net worth going to look like? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So we can start to plan. And then from that, you can take your cash flow model, roll that into your tax planning with your accountant as to how do we build the structure for my family to minimize my tax and have maximum cash flow coming out for me and for my family long term. And then from there, then you can roll that into, well, how does that then fit into my estate plan? And we try and take them through each step of this is, well, how do I then build my estate plan around my business plan, which ultimately came from my financial plan? That will then lay out how I then distribute my assets to my next generation or to charity or whatnot. And then that conversation turns into a really nice one, which is the family dynamics. What's important to your family? Is it a legacy with the charities? Is it get maximum dollars to grandchildren, great-grandchildren, planning for multiple generations? So that'll pull in an insurance conversation. It might pull in a foundation conversation, but it starts to really build a fabric around who you want to be as a family. So you kind of oftentimes start with, how do I build an investment plan? And that rolls into a financial plan, a business plan, an estate plan, and then ultimately a family legacy plan. And that's the process we like to take clients through.
That's fantastic. You're kind of the quarterback for all those aspects to make sure that they happen sequentially at the right time, right order of operation, and make sure that it sounds like you're getting the business owners not only to think long-term, but ultra long-term in terms of that next stage of when they're gone.
Let's just be prepared, right? Ultimately, let's just be prepared. Let's ask some hard questions. And let's take the resources we built to make sure we benefit our family and our community around us.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing your insights. And if somebody wanted to reach out and get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Sure. Yeah. Email-wise, it's jeremy.bridger@rbc.com. My team website is emperingham.ca. Any questions at all, please reach out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
You too.